All right, keyword crypto. Welcome everybody, and welcome to Adam from the Wasabi wallet. Thanks for joining us. He's talking to us all the way from Hungary in Europe. Just in case people don't know where Hungary is, it's in Europe. We're in the U.S. We're on the West Coast in California, and we just got through talking about a little bit of COVID crisis stuff before our recording equipment crashed. So here we are. Adam, I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to invite you on the show because I've been increasingly interested in privacy and anonymity in crypto because of stuff that's going on in the world, our government going through a change, wanting to be, serious about how I protect money and all that, all the reasons that people get into crypto. I went to the Wasabi website and found the frequently asked questions, and it actually answered a lot of questions that I had about coin joins and how the Wasabi wallet works. But I'd love to go through some of it and hear what you have to say about these things. Like, for instance, well, I guess how does a coin join work? Like, where did you come up with that idea?
Really fast. Do we want to jump in and explain to people what Wasabi is and maybe why you
sure, that's a good way to start.
Wanted to create it?
Adam, what is Wasabi and why did you create it?
I used to joke that I had a lot of Bitcoins on Silk Road, and so I needed a way to solve my problems. But then people took it literally, and so I don't joke with that anymore. And the reason why I was joking, because it's somewhat of a boring story. I started to look into something, and I looked into it more deeply and ended up learning a bunch about Bitcoin privacy, and it's over the years, right? And here we are with Wasabi wallet. but yeah, maybe what's interesting about that is that the very first time when I wrote down the idea of Wasabi wallet, I didn't call it that back then, but it was in 2015 Christmas Eve, because what better thing you have to do at Christmas but thinking of your next project.
Hiding away from the family, creating a new wallet.
That's what I do. I think of my next project around Christmas. That's true.
Christmas was different back then, but after you have a family, Christmas becomes a Christmas. But anyway,
right.
So the first couple of years I wasn't doing much, but mostly I was just trying to figure out how to have a light wallet that does not leak your privacy instantly to a third party, and really that was the first 2 years all about. And actually the Lightning Network developers. Lightning Network is a scaling protocol for Bitcoin. The Lightning Lab developers came with a new concept called neutrino filters, which finally enabled light wallets with privacy. And then the second issue is that how do you keep your privacy on a completely transparent blockchain? And that's what CoinJoin is for. So in Wasabi, I integrated CoinJoin, and no, I did not came out with CoinJoin. Actually, it's a really interesting story because many people don't know who was the one who figured it out how to do CoinJoins, because everyone assumed, even me, until a year ago, I was assuming that it was Gregory Maxwell in 2013 who figured out the concept of coin joins, but that was kind of naive because coin joins are so simple, of course. many people were discussing about this before Gregory Maxwell. So I did some research, and I found in 2011 on Bitcoin Talk forum, Hashcoin was the first one who threw out the idea, who I could trace back, who threw out the idea of joining coins together by multiple people. So yeah, it's Hashcoin who I currently attribute it for, and even what's more interesting is that CoinJoin as a term is also did not come from Gregory Maxwell, and I just got to know about it like a couple of weeks ago, listening to Peter Todd giving a podcast or having a podcast interview, and actually he said that it didn't come from Gregory Maxwell. Maxwell asked Peter Todd to come up with a name, and Peter Todd come up with the name of CoinJoin. But definitely Maxwell was who popularized it and who wrote the very first comprehensive. It's not really a research, but he wrote a very comprehensive blog post about CoinJoin, and really CoinJoin is really simple. It's just, if you have some bitcoins in your wallet, if I have some bitcoins in your wallet, then why don't we join them together, and the same bitcoins come back to our own wallets, so money does not get transferred, and that's all about CoinJoins, right? It's just people joining their coins together, exactly what the name suggests. So that's what Wasabi is doing, and here we are.
So Wasabi wallet, it's a software wallet. It's a hot wallet. It's not a hardware wallet. It's something that works with your browser, right? And CoinJoin, as you put it, it's a way of combining coins from other wallets. So if I have a Bitcoin and I want to process them through CoinJoin, basically it sends my Bitcoin to a bunch of other wallets and then sends them back to the same wallet, or sends them to a bunch of different wallets. Like, do you end up with several different addresses where your Bitcoin is, or is it still consolidated into one address?
Oh, all right. Let me get back a little bit. So Wasabi wallet currently is a desktop wallet. It's not a hardware wallet, but it's not a browser wallet, and it's not a mobile wallet. It's a desktop wallet. However, it works with your hardware wallets. So most of the hardware wallet providers works with Wasabi, so you don't have to leak your financial history to the hardware wallet providers, but Wasabi actually protects it. Anyhow, CoinJoins are, before Wasabi, actually before Join Market, that's another CoinJoin implementation. Before Join Market, people were sending their money to websites, which we call centralized traditional Bitcoin mixers, and they were sending their money there. And the problem with traditional Bitcoin mixers was that they can take your money and they can de-anonymize you. Now CoinJoins fix one of the things here. CoinJoins fix the stealing issue. So how Bitcoin works is, let me think, how can I put it simply? So you have coins in your wallet, right? That much is clear for everyone, that when you open your Bitcoin wallet, it has many coins in it. You might only see a balance, but under the hood it has many coins. It's called UTXO, but doesn't matter for us. So as you build a transaction, you put more and more coins into that transaction, as much as you need to make that transaction. And you can build a transaction without signing it. So if you come together with many people, you build a transaction, all of you together, and none of you signs it yet, then you can check the new coins in the transaction. And if you don't see your coins, your desired outputs in the transaction, then you don't sign and the transaction will never be valid. So this is why it's virtually, unless there is some terrible software bug, it's impossible to lose money with coin joins, because you have to sign the final transaction and everyone else has to sign the final transaction in order to make it valid.
I see. So I'm trying.
Can we jump in really fast and just so our audience knows the purpose? Let's go into the purpose of CoinJoin, because we haven't really just kind of laid that out. I mean, so tell me if I'm wrong, but the purpose of CoinJoin ultimately is so people's Bitcoin can't be tracked. Is that ultimately it? Because right now Bitcoin is not anonymous. Yeah. Anybody can track anybody's wallet in wallet history and know how much Bitcoin they have in their wallet, and who they're sending it to. And that's how the FBI caught the Russians who were meddling with the 2016 election, is they were paying for stuff with Bitcoin and the FBI tracked them. And so is that pretty much the purpose of CoinJoin, is to just kind of anonymize people in general so people just don't know their balances and what they're buying and who they're buying it from?
Yes, exactly. There are many ways to approach this. One is how you approach this. How I like to approach it is there are economic theories, and one theory seems to be pretty stable, which is the properties of good money. And these are divisibility, fungibility, portability, unit of value, and scarcity, and so on. But you can think about these properties of good money as different features that you have to build in order to build better money. And what else do we want to do with Bitcoin if not to build good money as possible? So one of the property that a money has to fulfill is fungibility. It's easy to see why, right? Because if you go buy some groceries, and if the grocery guy has to know that what happened with that money before, then that's not gonna result in a very seamlessly working society. So you have to make money as neutral as air. No one should be able to prevent you to breathe more air. So the point is that fungibility is one of the property of good money, and fungibility is indistinguishability from other coins. So if I have a Bitcoin and you have a Bitcoin, then no one should be able to distinguish between that two coins. It's very similar to cash. Actually, cash is perfectly fungible, right? If I have $100 bill and you have $100 bill, then we can exchange it and no one's gonna care. It's the exact same $100 bill, right? So that's what we are trying to achieve with Bitcoin too.
Well, technically, to get a little esoteric, they're not all the same. That's how they catch bank robbers. Is they have certain dollars are wrapped with certain
serial numbers.
So with certain numbers, so you can track it and you can find it. That's actually, I think that's how they caught the guy who they claimed killed the Lindbergh baby. Is because he had an old $100 bill, and they said or I forget what an old type of dollar, and he didn't know that Americans were supposed to turn them in and change them in for the new ones. And then later on, he got caught, and they pinned the Lindbergh baby death on him by having an old dollar bill that was traceable. So it's interesting that. So if people don't know, the idea is, you just don't want. Right now, the fear is, and people talk about this in a lot of the investment firms who are dealing with Bitcoin, is the reason why Fidelity. I've heard, this is just what we know so far, is the reason why Fidelity started to mine their own Bitcoin in Texas is because they didn't want tainted Bitcoin for their investors. They didn't want their investors to have Bitcoin that had been owned by a terrorist and used for terrorist purposes. So by mining their own Bitcoin, they can guarantee for their investors that they have clean, virgin Bitcoin. It hasn't been used. It hasn't been, you don't have to worry that it was money. And this is ridiculous because people are using cash that's been used by terrorists. It's just the way it is. Like, we dump billions of dollars of cash all over the world. Of course, some terrorist has used U.S. currency. We know this for a fact. And so there's a pretty good chance you're using money that was stolen by somebody or
Crazy.
used to buy drugs or used to buy a hooker or something. That's just the way it is. So I think this kind of idea of anonymity and virgin Bitcoin, I think it's a little over the top, but it is something to think about in the beginning because.
Okay, so Michael, that's a really good point. This idea of tainted money, and so this is one of the reasons I'm interested in privacy, is exactly what you said. Not because I'm worried about owning money that was used by a terrorist, but in this world where like people are talking about, PayPal, Venmo, it's so convenient. How can I not use this? And people don't realize that one of the main attributes of their money, the fact that it's fungible and it's private, people don't realize that this is going away. Like we're going to be left with, if not for crypto, we would be left with money that any nefarious party or government could track. And so that's really important. And that sounds like, you mentioned Silk Road as a joke, but I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And that's why, is that why you created Wasabi Wallet, was to take on that problem? Or did you just want to make a wallet at first?
No. Okay, so yes, that's. I just wanted people to use my software, right? I was just starting to become a pretty decent developer, but I never wrote something that many people use because, this closed source world is. This big company, this company world is when you write code and no one really checks it and barely anyone uses it, and there is a 2/3 chance that your project is gonna get cancelled before it's delivered anyway. So I just wanted to write something that's other people use it, and Join Market just came out, and it was a command line software, and I thought I'm gonna build on top of that. I think I stopped there. So yeah, I thought that and ended up in a very, very long learning rabbit hole, and started to realize that what would be a more interesting question is why I'm working on it now, because you can think about, let's go through this together. Can I ask you, why are you interested in working on, or what is your stance on blockchain, on this blockchain hype that blockchain can revolutionize voting and ID identification and all this kind of stuff? What's your stance on that?
My stance on it is, as I love it as an intellectual feast. Like, I love it as all the questions that we ask when we talk about blockchain revolutionizing money and governance and voting and computing. I think that I can't wait to see more of it in the future, but I think there are critical flaws or there's critical issues that need to be worked out. That's the way I see it. Michael, what do you think?
I agree. I think it has the potential to stop oppression, like voter oppression and financial oppression, but the people in the space who have adopted it are totally for oppressing people, and they do it at every chance they get. So it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't bode well for cryptocurrency, because when you have, the crypto space, the crypto Twitter space is just filled with white supremacy. And so if you're going to tell me that this is going to lift, developing nations out of poverty, and then you're like, fuck brown people, white people forever, then I don't really believe you. I think you're just I think it's just a pyramid scheme at this point, because, you got to put your money where your mouth is. And that's kind of my stance on crypto right now. I think
force against oppression.
Yeah, I think it has possibility, but the people who are creating it, a lot of them are white supremacists. And so just like with AI, people are like, oh, AI can't be racist. Well, if the person coding the AI is racist, then the AI is racist. And we've seen this through, hundreds of different AI tests where they just put an AI bot out on Twitter and it becomes like the most racist handle on Twitter ever. So, excuse me. So I think it all technology is created by a human being, and if the human being is flawed, then that technology is flawed. And so that's kind of my fear about cryptocurrency. That's just my fear about technology in general. I love technology, but
that's one of the things that we've talked about in terms of privacy and anonymity too on this show, is that how can you even get close to that when everything seems to be, fundamentally traceable on a computer in code? It's a really interesting problem, but that's our take on it, Adam.
Yeah, so
a little heavy.
That took a dark turn. Yes, let me pull it back to the light. I just wanted to bring up the first decision that you have to make in the blockchain space. That are you going to work on money, or you're going to work on something like smart contracts, voting, or something that's not money, right? And I don't know that much about how blockchain can revolutionize voting. If blockchain revolutionizes voting, that's a huge thing. That would be great. That would be awesome. But even if it would be huge, but there is just no larger revolution I can think of than the revolution of money. So maybe if they would figure out how to not age, that would be nice. Well, anyway, so that's why I'm not paying attention to smart contracts or voting or these kind of things, because the largest revolution I can participate in is money.
Adam, I think you're right, and I think I agree with you. However, we live in the U.S. We live in a capitalist country where basically you vote with your money. So to me, they're very similar in terms of theory. Of course, voting, there's nuances of voting that are touched on by Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies, smart contracts. But to me, it all comes from the same place, the same idea.
Yeah, our Supreme Court has ruled that money is speech and corporations are people. So we're really under the thumb of powerful corporations with a lot of money. So that's it's really hard to separate the two from our standpoint. And it's good that we have people like you who are building stuff with that in mind of just, no, we need to actually separate these two things. What is money? How does money work? Because a lot of us are already running, and you're like, no, wait, you still need to be crawling, because none of the stuff that we're talking about really exists yet. And I understand the idea of like, I think the exciting thing about gold is for 1,000 years, people have been trying to figure out how to make gold. Or 10,000 years, however long people have been using gold, they've been trying to figure out with alchemy and trying to make it, and they can never do it. And so, the amount of gold we have on the planet or whatever falls from space is pretty much what we have right now. And so it's very easy, and no one government can really kind of control that, because you can fight and you can attack and you can take it, but it's always just kind of going to be there. Versus the idea of Bitcoin, which somebody made it. Somebody's writing that code that makes it. And so it all of a sudden takes on a human quality of who was the person behind that? Is there any kind of altruistic ideas, or is there kind of evil intent, or all of a sudden, I think that's why people like the Fidelity people were like, we don't know anything about this stuff. Let's just make our own. Let's mine our own. And then we can not have to worry about all those side things of like terrorism and this and that. Because, people just instinctually start thinking that way. Like, who used this? Who used this money in my hand? Versus with gold, I just don't, I don't know if people really thought that. Have really ever thought about that. Like, whose gold is this? What was it used for? Does it matter? It's mine now. I can use it for good, and I can take off the taint of that terrorist who used it, and I can do something really good with it. Shouldn't I do that? Isn't that my responsibility? Versus just trying to pretend it didn't happen.
Let me play the devil's advocate here for you. What if they throw you to an island where with 99 criminals? Would you support there that someone should try to track the money there, because the criminality is so high in that society that there are some drastic measures that must be made, or you would stand for your neutrality even in those kind of extreme, unreasonable circumstances?
Well, I would love it. I think I like the system now where if somebody steals from me, it's trackable, and the bank and the insurance company can say, "Oh, look, you didn't make this purchase. This purchase was made 2 countries away from where you were yesterday because you used your wallet, you used your card to buy gas yesterday, and at the same exact time, 3 countries away, somebody bought a Porsche. Obviously, that wasn't you." Because we tracked that, we traced it, and you're not going to be responsible for that. And so I'm protected from that. Now, people can say, like, I don't want Big Brother protecting me, but at the end of the day, if someone takes all my money, I absolutely want Big Brother protecting me, because
that's why we created Big Brother.
That's why it's because that's the Big Brother isn't something that was created. We created it. It wasn't created by somebody else, like an alien or something like that, and made to oppress us. We joined together and said, hey, let's protect ourselves and have this oversight. And the only way it can go wrong is if people stop voting and stop paying attention and let nefarious people kind of take control of it. And they never thought people would not vote. Like, they're like, how would you not vote? That'd be ridiculous, because this is the only voice you have. So I kind of like that, and that's my partial fear with cryptocurrency in general is there isn't any oversight. If somebody steals your Bitcoin and they're not on crypto Twitter and get kind of like shamed on crypto Twitter, which is amazing that people on crypto Twitter are shaming criminals and the criminals are giving the money back. Like that just blows my mind. But I think that's kind of naive. That's not going to happen for long. Like when somebody starts stealing this stuff.
You want a president. You want a Bitcoin president. Is that it?
No. I mean, I just like insurance. As much as insurance sucks, but like I like the idea of insurance. If somebody steals all my Bitcoin,
I think I mean, I think the answer to that is we're going to build the insurance into the code, and like that's what it's going to be in the future. And part of that, so Adam, I think we're getting to another question here, which is privacy is good, but privacy also enables criminals. It enables nefarious use, right? I've heard a lot of people say, we've even had some guests on this podcast that say anonymity in crypto is a bad thing because it means your Bitcoin is more easily stolen. And I think that's an interesting question, and I'm curious how you see it.
So there are a couple of ways to look at it. One way would be is that in the current banking system, we have pretty decent privacy if you think about it. With cash, you almost have near perfect privacy. If you use banks, then at least your neighbor is not going to know how much money you have. At least your landlord is not going to know how much money you have and increase your rent because he figures out that you are into Bitcoin since 2012, right? So but Bitcoin changes this because Bitcoin had to introduce this transparent ledger because this was the only way to ensure that no one can inflate the money supply, and that's why you remember in the beginning you said you just got started to be interested in privacy recently, and that's what Bitcoin does to you. It opens your eyes that you don't care about privacy until you have it, but when you start to realize how much less privacy you have with Bitcoin, then you start caring about it. And
that's true. Yeah, that's true. I don't want if my Bitcoin gets stolen, I want it to be trackable. And I also related to what Michael was talking about. Like, it does make me nervous thinking about where my Bitcoin comes from, and who also knows that I have it. So if somebody knows that I have a lot of Bitcoin, I feel like more of a target. So these are all important issues when you're talking about money and privacy, and when cash, when dollars or euros is the only real anonymous currency we have left. Really? I mean, besides crypto, is there anything? Gold. I guess gold, but people don't really transact with gold. So
yeah, that would make you even less private because people were like, that would just put you on everyone's radar if you were paying with everything with gold coins. But I think there's a really good question, and I'd love your take on this, Adam. Is I can't remember where I saw it, but somebody did a history of privacy, and I think it made its way to the crypto news feeds, and about how, and kind of questioning whether privacy is a good thing or a bad thing. But it's a relatively new thing for human society, because for the vast majority of the human species, we didn't have privacy. Like, people were all living in the same room. It was like a one-room house, and it wasn't until like the late 1800s where people started to have their own rooms, and each person in the family started to have their own room, that privacy started to actually become a thing. Before that, it wasn't really something that people thought about, outside of like hiding to go to the bathroom. If they were going to the bathroom outside, you want a little bit of privacy there. But like outside of that, there wasn't such thing as privacy. And so this is all kind of like relatively new and how we're dealing with it. And then now we're dealing with money. And is privacy necessarily a good thing? I mean, like you said, with the purpose of Bitcoin is it's not private. It's all out there for everyone to see. And maybe that's a good thing. And taking away the privacy, is that a good thing? Or making it private, is that a good thing? Because I think, wasn't it Daniel who said that? Like, you introduce privacy and all of a sudden all this nefarious stuff can start going on. And there's no way to check it.
Yeah.
Well, you see, the lack of privacy in Bitcoin is not a feature; it's a bug. It's no one from the very early conversations on the cyberpunk mailing list. I'm not sure if you looked at that, but even there, privacy was one of the most important pressure that people wanted to be improving upon. But think about it this way. I'm not sure how old you are. Are you in your 30s or 20s or
40s?
40s. Okay, so you remember the time before internet, right? And people were saying that what happens if everyone can talk to anyone in the world? Like, that's crazy. Then terror is gonna organize themselves through the the making information neutral was very scary, and here we are with our iPhones and all kind of things, and the world didn't go. It did not become that worse, right? It improved a lot, and
we sacrificed a lot of privacy though in order to do that, I think. And you could argue that we're moving as a species towards less privacy, and we might be okay with that. We just have to be very careful who we give the control to, I think. We're also talking about two different things. We're talking about privacy and anonymity. And Adam, I want to know, what is the difference between privacy and anonymity? Because I know people use them. Sometimes they use them interchangeably, but they technically mean different things.
Anonymity is more like a technical term, but privacy is the right to... So there are actually three things here: fungibility, privacy, and anonymity. And fungibility is a property of good money. It's an economist term. Privacy is more like a right, and anonymity is more a technical term.
I see.
Let me see. Privacy is... that was really interesting that you said that we sacrificed a lot of our privacy to get here.
We may have. I don't really know.
And maybe, I agree. What I'm thinking about is that, did we sacrifice, or did we make conscious decisions? Like right now, I am in your podcast, and everyone in the world can listen to me and know my name and associate my name with my voice, right? And I made a conscious decision that to be transparent. So I'm not sacrificing my privacy for being in your...
Well, it can still be a sacrifice, though. I mean, like, for instance, I didn't join Facebook for the longest time because I was a private person. I didn't like sharing that much about my life. I liked staying private. But eventually I decided, you know what? I want to stay in touch with my relatives and my friends. So I'm going to put my life online a little bit. So it was a conscious choice, but it was still a sacrifice. And I think if you have a society that is doing that, there's so much peer pressure in a society that sometimes people are going to be changing without knowing that they're changing. And I think that's an interesting phenomenon. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I think it's interesting too, because I have now kid, and I'm thinking about the same things. Like, I want to play Pokemon Go with him, but you need to give him a phone and set up a Google account and all kind of things. And is it a good idea to start ruining his privacy right now before he could even make his own choice? These are interesting questions, and I don't.
But see, and we're talking about privacy like it's a good thing, and I don't necessarily. I think that's the question we should be asking ourselves: is it actually a good thing? Is it a good thing for a human being to have complete privacy? Because I think COVID's a perfect example of so many people being locked away in their homes with complete privacy, and it's driving them crazy to the point where they're willing to risk their lives to go outside and get COVID just to not be private anymore.
Well, that's not necessarily privacy that's making them go crazy. They just might not want to be in the same place.
No,
right?
I mean, but the idea of like if of too much privacy, like too much of being away from other people, not being, because this goes back to the history of privacy. What did privacy mean? Like privacy meant kind of having your own bedroom, because back in the 1600s, people would build a house and it was just a big one-room shelter. And
to me, it's having your own like agenda. I think that is private. Like having your own thoughts that you don't expect other people to know, and you may not want them to know.
yeah, but that's you. But,
And how long has
we've
that
had
been
that forever.
Have we though? Because before in a time, let's say on a more primitive time, maybe that was not a natural thing to have. Like maybe you expected everyone to kind of have the same thoughts. You had to because y'all lived in such a small place and we all relied on each other. And then 20th century, 19th, 20th century comes around and we've got big structures that we live in, and all of a sudden it becomes something about physical space.
No, but like,
that
everybody knew that I could think differently than you and just not say so. Since we've been conscious, we've known that we can do that. If somebody says, I like ice cream, and the other person's like thinking to themselves, well, I don't like ice cream, but I'm not going to say anything because who cares? Like, I'm just not going to say anything.
Well, I guess... So privacy, and we're talking about privacy in the relation to possessions, I guess. Possessions or, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about.
Well, I think it all stems to the original point of, is that a good thing?
Yeah. So I guess the question is when it comes to things that you can have or own, is privacy about those things good? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about thoughts. We're talking about a physical space, like a room that you live in. You want privacy in there. Maybe. Well,
we do have to think about it in terms of thoughts, is because our Supreme Court, which our country right now is the most powerful country in the world. No offense to Hungary, Adam, but our country is the most powerful country in the world, and our Supreme Court said that that money is the same as your thought. It's speech, and what you think and the ability to say it out loud, that's a protected right. And using as much money as you want to do it, and you can do it privately. So you have all these private corporations spending, billions and billions of dollars trying to control the world, and we have no way of watching them. We have no way of saying, hey, like, we have no way of tracking their money, and that's dangerous. Like, we spent the last 10 years trying to track Donald Trump's taxes, and we still don't know everything about it.
Yeah, I think it's funny that we invite Adam onto our podcast and talk about the Wasabi wallet, and we get into a discussion about whether privacy is a good thing or a bad thing in human society.
Well, is he even there? Are you still there, Adam?
Yes.
Sorry, we kind of go on tangents.
I think that what we're talking about is like totally fascinating. These things that most people in crypto are not really thinking about because they're either just there to get rich or they are so steeped in this stuff that they're not thinking about it very often. But you created a wallet that is focused on privacy and anonymity. And so you do think about this all the time. And you just told us those features of good money. One of them is fungibility, and fungibility is related to privacy, and that's related to anonymity. I'm not sure if all of our listeners have heard it in that way, so it's very informative, and I appreciate that. I have some questions about the way the wallet works, or I guess about how CoinJoin works, because to me, there's no way that you could possibly make it like completely anonymous, right? Like, basically what you're doing by performing a coin join or a coin mixer, maybe you can tell us what the difference between those are, but there's no way of performing a coin join that is, all it does is really make it very hard to track, right? That's all. It doesn't make it impossible. You want to talk about that for a second?
Sure. So first of all, our prime minister built a very long fence in our border to keep out the immigrants. So you can watch your back for being the most.
Yeah.
Anyway,
oppressive.
I'm not good at joking.
No, I took your meaning.
Okay, so with Wasabi, the thing is that it. So if you join your coins together with 5 other people, then there will be 5 possible sources of the coin that you are going to use later, right? So it does not make it impossible to track it, because it just increases the possibilities of where that coin could come from. That could be the answer here.
Okay. So it decreases it by, what is that, 80%?
Yeah, what would be the critical number of wallets to use when something would be considered private enough to, I don't know, how would you even measure that? What's private enough when it comes to a coin join?
That's a harder question than it sounds, because in Wasabi we have to set some defaults that what is private enough, and the same question came up. So how many people do you have to coin join to make it private enough, and no one, I mean, I did not come across any research to talk about this, and I sent out emails to Bitcoin privacy researchers, and they kind of had no idea either. So they were like putting numbers there, and it seemed to be like around 50 that should be sufficient enough. Now there is one way I would approach this. I could approach this, but I didn't fully fleshed out this idea, is that there are some diminishing returns there. Because if you think about, if there is only a single source to a coin, then that's anonymity set 1. Then that's a single source, that's 100% sure that it's going to come from there. If you introduce another source, then that's anonymity set 2, and your coin has a 50% chance of being coming from someone else. You gained 50% by introducing only one more person. So if you introduce a third person, then you don't gain 50% again, you only gain 25%. And then you will only gain 12 point whatever percent. So the point is there are some diminishing returns.
So it's like the Bitcoin halving. It's like the Bitcoin halving.
Yeah. Basically, that's so I see. I understand that. So there's no real way to say what is private enough when it comes to coin.
I mean,
join.
it seems like really fast. It seems kind of like Bitcoin, how over time people have figured out if you wait for 6 confirmations, it's pretty much 100% secure at that point, or not 100% secure, but it's so close to 100% that it'd be almost impossible to have the transaction not be confirmed.
So in this world that we're moving into, where Big Brother can see how much money you have and what you do with it, in that fictional world that might be the future, I want to keep my coins safe, and I look at things like Monero, I look at things like Zcash, and other privacy cryptos, privacy in quotation marks, and I'm really just not convinced by any of them yet. Like, for instance, looking at CoinJoin is a very interesting. I mean, it's really the simplest way that I can think of. If I had to anonymize my wallet, I would get a bunch of people together and say, hey, let's just swap our coins around until, or I would think I'm just going to make an infinite number. I'm just going to make 1,000 different wallet addresses, and I'm just going to send a little bit of Bitcoin to each one. And then I would just do that. I would do that until it would just be such a pain in the ass to track my Bitcoin.
That would just be so expensive, though. Hey, Adam.
Yeah, it would be very expensive.
Hey, Adam,
yeah.
when you're using Wasabi, are people just trading the UTXOs, or are they actually trading Bitcoin on the blockchain?
They are trading Bitcoin on the blockchain.
So you are paying the transaction fee every time you want to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's
So you're paying.
That
So you're
sounds
paying
like
for privacy. This is not like there isn't
Yes.
some kind of easy fix to this.
and it's even
Okay.
worse.
I mean,
because in the future, blockchains don't scale, and in the future it's just gonna be worse and worse because. Yeah, I think you can see why it will get worse,
Yeah.
and it's a very real worry that privacy eventually just gonna be priced out of Bitcoin, and yeah.
Well, it's still something that we talk about a lot. We hear Andreas Antonopoulos talk about privacy all the time and how it's coming to Bitcoin. And he's very optimistic about that, but you don't sound optimistic. You think it actually will get priced out.
I don't really know, right? It's so we are
What about
improving
other
all the
cryptos?
time, and it's getting more and more economical, but ultimately, I think I think he's right. I mean, if you think about that, it's not only privacy that's gonna be ultimately priced out of the blockchain; it's every single blockchain transaction except something that's moving millions of dollars is going to be priced out, and only Lightning channel openings and closing will be economical enough for normal people to make. So maybe just a transition period right now until everyone's gonna start using Lightning because so we are talking about thousands of dollars in transaction fees, and there isn't really anything to do about that except to build second layers. And what's less optimistic, even less optimistic, what I just said, is that if mass adoptions happens anytime soon, then Bitcoin is going to scale up very fast. And the only way to scale up fast is to use centralized Bitcoin banks, because that's the only thing that we can build out in a very, very fast way. And maybe that will be time to move from Bitcoin to something else. Or until then, we are trying to make Bitcoin scale in a way that you don't have to lose your custody and you don't have to lose your privacy. These are the two last stands for Bitcoin, so to say. Actually, there is the full node movement, right? People want you to use Bitcoin full nodes. I think that's kind of lost at this point, and even there is even another movement which is the miner movement, which is that everyone should be a Bitcoin miner, which is just completely lost. No one even talks about this anymore. So yeah, I got into tangents too. Yeah, sorry about that. What were we talking about?
no, I
No,
like
it's good.
that. I like when people working in the Bitcoin space are honest about what we talk about, because we talk about this, and I know there's going to be a certain segment of our listeners who are just like grinning evilly, like, yes, when it runs out, people are going to have to come over to our cryptocurrency, and
Yeah.
I mean, people who listen to this show know that I'm very vocal about just what you said. That's the reality, and we had Mario Gibney on, and he flat out said Bitcoin is like it's an experiment, and Lightning chain, and Lightning network doesn't 100% work, and that's an experiment too. And Mike, I keep thinking to myself as like, well, what happens if the experiment fails? Does cryptocurrency die, or people just move on to the next different cryptocurrency?
The thought, when you're talking about how thousands of dollars privacy, people are going to pay for privacy. So a potential future is that the only people with millions or billions worth in crypto are private, and everyone else can be seen. That's a really scary thought. That's what our possible future looks like, where the richest people are unknown and everybody else can be seen?
I'm just gonna dodge that question and ask you: Are you? Let me bring the bright side of the things too, because
I love this conversation. By the way, we should bring back the white supremacy. Just kidding.
So yeah, whatever we are talking about the future, there is a chance that it's very likely that it's not going to be like that. And are you familiar with a book called The Dream Machine?
No,
I don't know that book. Sounds like something I would have read, but
okay,
no.
so me neither. It's just I heard in someone talking about this, and so I might completely misinterpret it. But what I think it's about is about technological advancements and how they happen and how they are not happening in a way that's predictable, because there are always people who, this saying that best way to predict the future is to make it happen, to build it yourself, right?
To build it.
So if Bill Gates or Steve Jobs would have been advocate of open source software, then today open source would be eating the world. I mean, today it is eating the world, but if they would have been advocates of open source, then today everything would be open source. So you can't predict if the future is open source or not, because it will come down to a couple of individuals who choose to make the future and not just sit around and try to predict it. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to do.
I find it really interesting that you are vocal about a potential dystopian future for Bitcoin, and yet you're still working on it, which to me makes you either a complete masochist or a complete optimist. Because it's like I like the idea that you're grappling with all these dark thoughts, and yet you're still pushing forward to try to create something good for people. And I think it goes back to your question of, with the Pokemon Go, do you give that phone to a child and kind of introduce them to this, to the dangers of all that? And it's that, I think it's this emotional grappling that we all do every minute of the day about something. And you have to be conscious along the way. You have to constantly be thinking about these things, because these are things a lot of people in America, I'm not sure how it is in Hungary, but a lot of people in America just kind of like to shut everything off and not have to ask any of those questions of themselves. And I think that's what we love having people like you on the show, because you're not afraid to ask those tough questions, even though it goes directly against what you're working on with Wasabi. Because if that dystopian future happens, only like 5 people will be able to use Wasabi Wallet. If transaction fees get that expensive, you're going to have a very small, limited amount of people who can actually use that part of Wasabi.
I didn't actually mean Wasabi transactions will be $1,000, but I actually meant like normal Bitcoin transactions will go up that high.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We got it.
So, yeah.
But in order to afford something like a coin join process, that would be very, very expensive in the future if that happens. But you're still building it,
there is light at the end of the tunnel, because there are. Have you heard about confidential transactions?
No, I haven't.
On Bitcoin?
Okay,
no.
So it's probably not coming to Bitcoin, but it could, and that's one light, because that's a relatively simple thing. It's nothing special. It's just masking the amounts of Bitcoin transactions. Anyway, so the point is that if we have confidential transactions in Bitcoin and we have input signature aggregations, which, by the way, like I've just heard that it might don't come to Bitcoin either, but let's just step that aside because everyone is expecting Schnorr input signature aggregations. Then if we have confidential transactions with bulletproofs and input signature aggregations, then making CoinJoin transactions would be actually cheaper than making normal transactions, because if you join your transaction together with many people and you share the price of the signature, then it would be cheaper. So now we establish it at least theoretically possible to have cheaper privacy than normal Bitcoin transactions. Now, even failing that, I think one could be messing around with opening Lightning Network channels from CoinJoins, and that should not be any more expensive than just opening Lightning Network channels normally. So I don't see any problem with that. But even making CoinJoin transactions, you're familiar with blockchain info, right? Blockchain info is a Bitcoin wallet. It's probably the most popular one.
Oh, right.
It's a very old one, and they had a feature called a CoinJoin. They were actually doing CoinJoins blockchain info, by the way, from 2013 to 16, something like that. They called it shared coin, and this was a naive CoinJoin implementation, which was just people were doing things very, very naively and very easy to de-anonymize. Okay, that's not really correct. It wasn't easy to de-anonymize it. It could probably be. Anyway, the point is that even if you are not trying to gain any privacy in CoinJoins, which means the cost is the exact same than normal transactions, then you still add a lot of unreliability to that transaction. And even if someone would want to figure that transaction out, what happened in that big CoinJoin transaction that you did with someone else, even if you didn't intend to do anything private, it would take a lot of computation, more computation than how much computation there is in this world to actually find the links back. There are more sophisticated algorithms, so we are not going to rely on this with Wasabi. But at least there are the ideas of how to get at least some privacy, even without any. So it's not clear to me. Proper privacy, it might be priced out of Bitcoin if we won't have Bitcoin confidential transactions, but at least some privacy there will always be possible, I think.
So you're an optimist. That's good. The
After
eternal
all that.
optimist.
Well, I want to bring up one more negative thing real quick. Actually, it might be positive, but I want to know, do we know what the legal status is of
I was just going to ask
CoinJoin
that.
or coin mixers?
Because we bring that up because didn't somebody get arrested earlier this year for mixing coins?
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm sure you know about this, Adam. Probably in different jurisdictions all over the world. But I mean, we could probably talk forever about how could you possibly make something like sharing coins illegal? That gets very close to outlawing crypto. So I want your thoughts on that.
So, as a user, there is no. So, CoinJoins are as legal as Bitcoin in your country, right? If Bitcoin is banned, then CoinJoins are banned too. So there is no laws against privacy, like specifically targeting CoinJoins. Now, what you're talking about someone being arrested is you're talking about a Helix mixer case. Am I right about that?
I can't remember exactly what it was about, but I remember it being something about mixing, and I heard about it in passing, and then I heard that somebody got arrested by the U.S. government, and it kind of made my ears perk up. But then something else happened right after that, like a dog chasing a squirrel. I was just like, I got sidetracked and I forgot to look back about it.
Well, I remember hearing about coin mixers being illegal, but I don't remember. I mean, it was just one of those things where I thought, oh, the government's going to try to make all privacy-related crypto things illegal. And if that means coin mixing services, then that's what's up next. But there's no way it's not possible to enforce that. And I don't even know if that's true, if there is any sort of unwritten law about that.
Okay, so
have you come across
the
that?
Helix Mixer case had headlines lately, and if you look into what really happened there, it wasn't because the guy was operating a Bitcoin mixer. He was operating a centralized Bitcoin mixer, which there were two things. One is that it was a money transmitter service because it had custody over its users' money, unregulated money transmitter service. And the other thing was that it might have partnered with Alphabay. Alphabay was the largest darknet market in 2016-17-ish, and users were able to withdraw coins from Alphabay through Helix Mixer, and that was not a so they didn't get that far to try to prosecute him for running a mixer. He was prosecuted first of all for the money transmitter thingy, unregulated money transmitter service, and I don't think this is just, but I mean, yeah, if you think about that, if someone is going to hold a lot of people's money, then maybe there are some regulation needed there, or I'm not quite sure what's your economist stance on these kind of things. I'm not. It's not clear for me what's the right what's justice and what's not. But yeah.
I guess we don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like one of those things you just kind of play by ear and you figure it out as you go along.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have? Is there anything? Do you need to be worried in any way by associating yourself with a coin mixer, with the wallet?
Yeah, I think I should be extremely worried, to be honest, and I am, because so even at the very beginning, I wanted to just write a software that many people use, and as the times progressed, as the time progressed, I just became extremely worried that, man, we are revolutionizing money here, and government's gonna go under because of Bitcoin, and if this thing gets really big and I'm in the forefront, then I might be the first one to get droned, right? So before we started the Wasabi company, I specifically seeked out two lawyers to start the company with me, to make sure everything is going by the book, because I'm really worried. But privacy is not illegal, it's a human right, so should not be a problem.
That's good.
Do you what is your you're committed to this wallet and this particular way of keeping coins private. What do you think of other altcoins, Monero and Zcash. Do you think that there's a future there? Are you interested at all, or you're just like, got to make Bitcoin work?
I think they are extremely important. Let me see. So in the beginning, I talked about why I'm interested in the revolution of money and not the revolution of smart contracts. But if we go further, then we can think about the properties of good money, and based on that, you can conclude that fiat is unsavable. Maybe you can conclude that gold is unsavable. I don't know. Then you get to Bitcoin. And then you might look at, well, Monero is much better, much more private, so it's objectively a better money, right? So you move to Monero, and then Zcash comes around, and Zcash actually has some pretty nice way to do privacy. I mean, I wouldn't argue Zcash is better. At least there is the cryptography that's better, but there are some other design choices that I wouldn't agree. But let's assume that Zcash is better, so I move to Zcash. But then, if you're in Zcash, then you're going to see that there is that new other privacy coin that's just coming up that's even better. And then in that new other privacy coin, you're going to just see something else, that there is even a better research that you could move to that research, and when you're at that other research that didn't even build its privacy coin, then you just see the problems with your research, and you might have so many unexplored ways of thinking about, and you are so, like, you can always move deeper and deeper, and then a mathematical breakthrough happens, like NP equals XYZ, and we can start over everything. so my point is that you have to draw the line somewhere, and how I chose to draw the line was that I looked at, so I think I don't have to explain why I don't work on fiat or gold, but so regarding Bitcoins and altcoins, I looked at how much Bitcoin brought to the table compared to the traditional financial system. And it brought a lot. It brought scarcity, which has huge far-reaching implications that Bitcoin is scarce. Anyhow, so I looked at that, and I looked at altcoins, and I see, let's say there is a privacy altcoin, Monero. And let's say Monero is bringing fungibility. But my question is, do people really care about privacy that much to switch to another ecosystem? And my answer has to be, sadly, it is not the case. People don't care about privacy, so that's why Bitcoin is gaining more traction than other coins right now. And now, if Bitcoin is the future, and it's gonna stay like it is right now, then we might even have a worse future, worse money than what we have right now with the traditional banking system. So we better fix Bitcoin.
Oh man!
Otherwise, like things can go really downhill somehow. That's the idea.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good way to bookend this conversation, I think. Unless we want to leave on one. Well, I guess that's not a negative thought. We just got a lot of work to do to make this new financial system better than what we currently have, and it's going to take work, but it's also going to take people being optimistic about this stuff and figuring out ways to do it. Well, thanks, Adam. I'm going to need to go pretty soon, but this is an amazing conversation. I had a lot of fun, and I still have lots of questions about about you and Wasabi, but maybe we'll invite you back on the show and we can talk another
Philosophize
time.
a little bit more.
Yeah, this is great. How can our listeners find you, follow you, and get info on what you're doing?
All right. Thank you, guys. I agree with you that the future is probably bright. We just have a lot of work to do. And they can find me on, I suppose, Twitter. That's a nice place. If you want to see what kind of projects I'm contributing to, you can go to GitHub, and my name everywhere is Nopara73.
Nopara.
Yes,
We'll have that in the
exactly.
show notes.
Nopara.
Just Google that. And anyway, I really enjoyed this conversation too. I wasn't expecting this to be so intellectually stimulating. So thanks, guys, for that.
Yeah. Thanks for
no,
playing
of course.
along.
And I'm trying to get some other people who are experienced in privacy and privacy related crypto. So if anybody is listening to this, if you found the conversation interesting, put the word out that we're looking to get into a little series about this, talk more about it, and talk, in philosophical ways like we did with Adam. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Adam, for coming on the show.
Bye.
And